Already, good afternoon, everybody. I'll try to keep it short so we can have lunch in relatively time. Maybe if I remember correctly, the lines from yesterday. I think some people already went up to grab some lunch, so I'll keep it short. So my name is Meir Friedlander. I'm heading product operations and business at Speech Morphing. And just a few notes because I was here for the last couple of sessions, and I think to some answers to some questions that were raised here before. I think that in some cases, yes, I think we and other companies may enable you to mix audio recordings with TTS as long as it's the same voice. And this is very, very important. I mean, I wouldn't use Alexa plus another voice for the same messaging. It doesn't make any sense. But if it's the same voice and the TTS quality is good enough, then the answer, I think, should be yes, because it might be an opportunity to mix it with styles that may not be ready yet with the TTS, but may be available for just simple recordings and make it more interesting, nicer, more intrigue for the customers or for the brand to use. Just out of curiosity, how many of here, are more interested in home usage of text-to-speech or voices or experience? How many are enterprise, more users? Okay, interesting. People here are mostly, UI designers, marketing people, developers, enterprise users, end users. Okay. I think I'll try to be not too technical, which is, if you want to ask more questions, as far as I can answer, we can go later on and do it on the floor later on. Also, I can answer some questions about how to do dynamic SSML, a question that was asked here before, and we can refer to that now, or again, we can do it later on, but I'll give some examples of how we use the say it command and use SSML and actually change tone or change the dynamic of the voice during that discussion through simple instructions from the bot to the voice. Okay, so in the end-to-end voice solution, I think we are very much alike in our mission, together with bigger companies like Google and Amazon and others, to change the world of human-machine communication, but we're more focusing on the voice side of that. So less about, in our case, less about the understanding of the human side, less about processing that understanding, but more about how the system reacts, how the bot reacts to the user according to the situations and to the contexts, the right ones. And we do it through building expressive voices, doing it with branded voices that are affordable to any application, and relatively low cost and quick turn time that is very, very, very important to some of our applications. And we'll talk about it later on while we continue. How many of you, I guess everybody, but just to know Google Duplex? So I think if we take our goal is to have the same kind of experience that Google Duplex has for consumers, enabling brands and companies giving the same experience to the users when they talk with their customer care or applications. This is, I think, if I have to compare to what we expect or what our goal is. So I think we are all consumers, so we are all familiar with virtual assistant. I mean, probably a year ago I would ask, okay, so how many of you know Alexa and how many of you know OK Google? Today I'll have to ask, how many of you are using less than 10 times a day Siri, Alexa, or OK Google? Probably I'll see none. I think it's also about it was one of our previous sessions talking about controlling IoTs, and it's a way beyond the old initial usage of, at least for me, using Alexa for Alexa, please pay for me, or Alexa, when I'm cooking, Alexa, count down 2 minutes, which was the two major usages initially. But I think today people are using it more and more for other applications. I'm happy to see that the market evolved from, yes, maybe 10,000 skills last year, but maybe 1,000 users per skill or no retention for the skills, to skills today that people are using, not exactly in the millions yet, but definitely in the tens of thousands and with some level of retention, especially games and especially keys applications, which is, I think, both of them are really nice segments in this market. But we would like to give enterprise users, whether it's next generation of IVRs, self-service, or developing bots and chatbots, the same level of experience. We'd like people to know these devices, these brands the same way, and to interact with these machines exactly the same way. Because if I ask you now, how many of you know who Kate is? You work for Genesis? How many of you know who Niva is? This is the equivalent from NICE. So I saw 1, 2, 3. So we anticipate that within the next 2, 3 years, people will actually start becoming familiar with these voices, but these voices will be more like a platform. So you'll expect these voices to present a platform that is doing the end-to-end solution, but may use voices that are branded for the brand, or some styles and specific interactions and UIs that are specifically for that brand using that platform. Gartner anticipated by 2022, 85% of customers will actually be interacting with the brands through bots, and it will be more than they'll do with their spouse, which I hope that not, but everybody with his own experience on that one. And eventually, I think that the nice thing is companies and customers eventually want the same thing. Both want a fast solution to problems, both want efficiency, both don't want to spend time. Consumers and customers from their time spent and experience, and companies don't want to lose customers. I don't know, I've been to one of the conferences 2 months ago, and one of the biggest brands mentioned that in their IVR systems, customers, on the average, less than 8% survive the first 2 questions. I mean, most people just hang out and waiting for a human or just don't do anything, and this is very, very bad for the brand. And part of our intention is how we can make these conversations more efficient, how we can go to a world without dropping tons of chatbots that not even examined and tested, but go to a world where there will be IVRs that will be developed gradually and smoothly into the world of fully intelligent bots. Yeah, at least one company said that less than 8% survived the first 2 prompts from the IVR. Less than 8% of the customers actually go beyond the next 2 prompts, yeah. I was surprised, I was shocked. I think that they said that the goal is 80%, but it was like... So, we're all surrounded by voices that sound alike. I mean, people are now using Alexa for some experiments. People are using Google Home, OK Google for experimenting. And even if some of us are using applications like Poly and Niva and Nuance and others, typically these are like same 4 or 5 voices for English, probably same 1 or 2 for other languages. All of them have 1 male, 1 female, but all speak the same. All don't have any intonations too much. The distance or the gap between what you have at home when you experience Alexa or Duplex or Google and when you listen to IVRs is amazing. And when people do try to brand the voices, typically it's by doing recording because the process is too expensive. A year ago, one of the major banks in the US built like, I think 2 or 3 branded voices for their own IVR systems and I think some ATM accessibility applications. And the cost was over $500,000 and 6 to 9 months per voice. To build that the voice will be the voice that they wanted to have instead of the default voice from companies like Nuance or Amazon Connect, which is the equivalent to Alexa for enterprise product. And companies like even Waze, for those of you who live in California, I think like 2 years ago, they had Arnold Schwarzenegger recorded for Waze, but it was recording only. It said the only thing he would say would be turn left, turn right, and hasta la vista at the end. The rest of it was just pure recording. I talked to the guy, to the CTO at Waze, and he told me, yeah, we got him into the studio. He had 1 hour to record. This is what we had. They did, Waze is originally an Israeli company, and they recorded in Israel the president of Israel. Not Netanyahu, which is the prime minister, the president, which is a nicer guy. And they recorded him. He's very, very nice voice. He likes to sing and to express himself. And again, it was maybe 2 sessions, and all he could say is turn left and right, you arrive to your destination, roughly the similar things. When Google and Intel and Oakley had his Oakley glasses a couple of years ago, I don't know if you're familiar with these glasses. They were like for running and for biking glasses, and they had, I think, 2 tones. All of it were recording. They had the sergeant tone and the nice polite tone, and both of them were the same, both based on recording, purely recordings. And when you go and try to use text-to-speech, you have something like this, and you go, devices are speaking to you, but they all speak with you to the same voice. So how do you know now, if you're with a phone here and you go, should I turn left, should I turn right, should I go, what should I do next when all voices are speaking to me, and they may say even contradicting things to me right now. So the experience that someone here, I don't know who was asking in the previous session, combining recordings on audio recordings with TTS to some extent. I mean, I don't know again who you have refills prescriptions from Costco. If you go to and call Costco, you may even in some states you can call. You'll listen, and it'll be a male voice combined with a female voice for the TTS in the same sentence. And you'll have sentences like, yeah, your order will be ready tomorrow at 10:35 a.m. Or my last name, which is pretty complex, it's Friedlander, will be pronounced as Friedlander, because they don't know how to pronounce my name. And it sounds weird and annoying, and maybe it's good for refilling, but not really good for real-time applications like we speak right now. And even if they try to take the same person, like I think United Airlines had a project like that, and they try to take the same person that is the spokesman or spokeswoman for the brand for the last few years. When they try to build a TTS from it, the recordings are from 5 years ago. Between then and now, she smoked another 500,000 cigarettes, and she was tired that morning, and the voice doesn't sound the same. So back to that, I think that branding is important for organizations, and organizations would like to have it. It's what kind of I'd say level of engagement they expect from the customers. Customer engage with some brands, customer engage with some voices. I guess who doesn't know the voice of Progressive Insurance or the voice of Keiko, or I mean all these are known. If Disney would like to brand tomorrow something, their voices are familiar, people know those voices. Celebrities, some of them are known, some of them are less known. I guess some celebrities and presidents, some voices are known and some voices are less known. And people would like to use this, but practically when they already invested in some of those branding in existing IVR systems, the path to move to new generation of fully synthesized, fully integrated with a nice bot systems, very well designed, is not that easy. I mean, it's something that they need to work on, and I think that I'll show you in the next few slides how we at least plan to do this, and how we are already doing it for several customers. It's also important for the voices to take advantage of new bots' abilities and features. If new bot today can understand that the customer is frustrated, I need to answer to this customer differently than I'm just regularly talk to a customer. If the customer is annoying me, unlike human, I don't have necessarily to annoy him back or her back. But maybe yes, maybe this is right in some cultures. Maybe this is the right way to answer. I was in a sitting with a customer in Israel in demonstrations, and I was demonstrating our angry tone with one of the voices we have, And I made a disclaimer in the beginning. In the beginning, immediately, I said, this is a tone that we don't use for customers. This is a tone that we use only for demonstrations, because angry is something that is easily shown, or we can easily distinguish between natural and neutral tone to angry. It's really easy to show when it's going into angry and out of angry. And they were listening to this, and the guy, the CTO of the bank, it's the second largest bank in Israel, he's asking me, why can't we use this for, for customer care? And so in different cultures, different tones are also different, and people speak differently. And we think that a good solution without complementary tools is not good enough. I mean, we have to support, we as a voice provider have to support the designers community, have to support the not only the technical people, which is nice, but support also, which give APIs to, but support also the marketing people in an organization with tools and means to fine-tune the voices, to edit the voices, to make sure that the voices do sound well in different situations, to really design a script, not really push in what you think should be the first 5 sentences. I mean, there's a script to design. You can sit with the bot people. We see with our customers today that we meet more the bot and the marketing and the vui people more than they used before when you used to sit with lab and IT people. And this is very, very important. I'll jump quickly on that because I want to start showing some examples. So when we talk about customizing voices or branding voices, and I think we all agree that it's important, the main reason why people are not using it yet, maybe with the exception of maybe top 50 enterprises in the US, and even then probably they use 1, 2, 3 voices that no one is familiar with, is because they're expensive. These are mostly neutral. It takes months to complete. And if they have to integrate with an existing IVR system, and you have to integrate existing audio with text-to-speech, they don't sound the same. And I think that we can answer all these questions, not necessarily 100% today, but pretty well even today. And because it's all neural network based, it will just improve over time with more and more data. So the more data, and I'll talk about it just briefly in a few moments, we will improve the models over time, and we can even, project a better improved for a customer, relatively still very, very low cost. So I hope I'll press the right buttons in the places.
Mr. Friedlander, you are so funny. How can I help you today?
Let me just, okay.
Mr. Friedlander, you are so funny. How can I help you today?
Or,
Mr. Friedlander, my apologies. I am so sorry to hear that. Anything else I can help you with today?
or,
Mr. Friedlander, I am so happy to hear that. Anything else I can help you with today?
and sometimes our voices, because it's all modeled, so it's not playing with the vocoder, so it's not like, many companies used to do in the past, like making a whisper or making a very hoarse voice, which is something we are doing also, and I'm going to talk about this as well, but this is all modeled. Some voices happy will be different than happy, some others happy. And for example, her voice, as our chief director, Esther used to say, she sounds more like a cheerleader girl than really happy, but
Mr. Friedlander, I am so happy to hear that. Anything else I can help you with today?
which is a bit different. But essentially, we can control these. And for someone who asked this question 2 sessions ago, all these is controlled through the SSML. So in the SSML, you always say, hey, change tone to tone that exists in the system, and you can retrieve which tones are exist for your domain, which one exists for this specific voice. They may have replaceable. You may even ask questions about, give me the tone that is this for this style, which, because, angry tone for adults book reading may be different than angry tone for children book reading, and so on. So we have all these functionalities. Not everything is implemented as of today, but we have all this functionality within the system, so we can brand the voice for customers that have all these features inside the voices. What we need from the voices is typically between 3 to 30 minutes of recordings. 3 minutes, I'll let you listen later on to 5 minutes recordings. Quality is so-so. There's a company in Canada, Lyrebird, that roughly by the same quality that theirs. But we can also build a voice in 30 minutes of recording. Now, keep in mind, these 30 minutes of recording may come from existing IVR recordings, which may have already useful 10, 20 minutes of recordings. So it may mean one session, one recording session for this talent voice. This is it, like 2 hours. So even if they charge $2,000 for the session, it's still something which is very, very reasonable price-wise to having this on. Sometimes it may require a week, which is what we learned, because sometimes customers would like to have their own style, which is a bit different than the styles that we have, and they want to record some. Sometimes we maybe more than one voice and more than one accent, for example, and it's the same voice. So one voice can play 4 or 5 different accents for 4 or 5 different markets in the U.S., and I want to record all 5. So it may require us to record maybe 30 minutes from his native accent, his or her native accent, and then another 5 to 10 minutes of any other accent as well. So we may need 35 minutes or 40 minutes of total recordings. Okay, one thing that is important, I don't remember what is here, is that we also define, together with the customer, we also define the domains. And the domains are beyond what, I think the Amazon right now is the most advanced one defining domains. Domains is beyond just which words you should say differently. And I'm going to talk about it, just show a few examples later on. But you may have different lingo. You may have different vocabulary. Talking to your audience may reflect your domain. Speaking to kids, speaking to my mother, you may say OMG and it will be OMG, but speaking to my kids, it will be oh my God. Trying to.
Oh my God.
And these both coming from the same text. So if it's taking a text message or an email, or a short message somewhere else, is something that you'd like it to be interpreted correctly, and according to the audience and according to the situation. This is what other people say about us. So when I, again, quickly go, I think these presentations are available later on, so I'll jump to the next slide. I don't want to go too much technology here. The main thing that I want to present here is that we build many layers of data and metadata on top of the typical text-to-speech engines, which are keeping the recorded audio, transcript, labeling, which is the phonetic labeling of it, and maybe some, 100 features that are mathematical sound models or audio models features. We build on top of that, first of all, our models have thousands of features, but beyond that, we build data that train the system also how to say things, and then human sit and say, this was an annoying sentence, or this was a stern sentence, or this was a stern tone, and this was an angry tone, and this one is good for if you want to increase customer engagement, and this is good for if you want to make the customer annoyed even more than, or frustrated even more than they are now. And we take all this data, and roughly we build two groups of neural networks out of this data. One is the one that predicts the prosody. Prosody is the combination of intonation and duration and how to say things. SML actually initially was built to that, but it's very technical how to build it. So you don't have to build in, it's kind of coming from a model. And the second one is using exactly the same model to define the context for a neural network to know how to synthesize with the best, if you would say, waveform to create the best one for that combination, which is not unlike, unlike Google and others. It's not only based on the characters and the text, but also based on the situation. I mean, what kind of tone or impression I want to create. These are kind of instructions we can get from the bot, or just guess it through the context. I'll jump quickly, but when we build a voice for the customer, building the voice is I think, understandable. We just record, and eventually we do a process of annotation and building the voice. But I think that's also important is that we enable the customer to sit with us, or with the designers, and to sit with us and design also the transition between their existing IVRs to the new voice. So they can say, you know what, I'm already using a sentence like this. On a certain date, you transfer a certain amount of money to that company. But today we're using a combination of short sentences plus TTS, or we're using TTS, which is the TTS only stitching. It's like 7-17-2018 sometimes. I mean, I guess not in dates. And we can do it, and the customer can define it in their own way. So, for example, some customers would like to have dates set as is.
July 17, 2018.
Some would like to add the day, even though the day is not here. I mean, we can look for the day and add a day as part of the rule.
July 17, 2018.
And even if we know that you are speaking to a, let's say, English customer, we may even want to say differently.
Tuesday, the 17th of July, 2018.
And it all comes from the same text and just a set of rules that you can provide to us. So part of our domain is expanding those rules to be beyond just, open it to the one way that is defined in my place. And we found some organizations actually on that only have 2 or 3 people that are working, that typically they are IT people, that kind of defining some things like regular expressions and many ways how to open that stuff. We provide this as part of our, we have tools for that, and you can actually design it. And even, I mean, if you want to say this one in the regular way, but others may want to say US dollars, or even say it in this, I mean, I don't expect any bank to say this, but for example, if this is an educational application and it's a math equation, probably you don't want to say the dollar, but you want to say 2093.45. We can define different tones for semi-NLG that we're also doing. So the bot can tell us, you know what, for this, here's how you say that, and just actually transfer to us the pure SSML. But it can also tell us, you know what, for this is an older person, say this one differently. Or if we define it already, predefine it as a template with the customer, and this is a banking application, we can say, you know what, any exception, we the bank define exceptions. When you speak to the customer, even if you confirm something, say differently. So use a stern voice if you are using exception over limit, using a promotional tone if you do promotions. And speaking fast if you do these print letters, I mean, the small prints at the end. So all these can be given as instructions, and again, they also can have private domain and such. Quickly, let me go through 2 tools that we have. We have more than 2, but these are like, currently it is the most common ones that we use, and I think it'll demonstrate a bit what we can do. So this tool is a tool that allows us to define and design templates for the customer. Typically, we use it with a linguist and with someone from the marketing. The process can be either take an existing IVR and change it, and existing IVR with the same voice. I can show later on samples if you are interested in, but if you design it correctly, we can replicate existing recordings, but using a synthesized voice, so you can stitch in whatever you want to stitch in, up to 97, 98% if the voice is pretty good. Most people over 8 bits and 8 kilohertz phone line will not even feel any difference. And I have samples for that enough. What also is important, sometimes you already have, you built your voice, but the talent is not available anymore. So you have the recordings, you build a voice from these recordings, this is what you have. And you want to now force it still with, a more vivid style, because back then in the old days, they said something one way, now they want to say it a bit differently. So we can even take someone else's voice. So in this case, So this is Esther, the same Esther that our voice director that we talked about before. And I can repeat that style with my synthesized voice.
Do you want the transaction history for your checking account or your savings account?
So it's not 100% okay. I can tweak it with this application. I can actually listen again and again to how it sounds coming from her and how it sounds when with this voice when I'm, I cannot point unfortunately to it. Maybe I can. I don't know how. But at the bottom, I can actually play the synthesized voice and say, okay, I'm now editing and I can edit. There's a typo here, but I can edit things like breaks and boundary tones and focuses and such. And I can, in some languages that are, so for example, even gender sensitive, I can even play within the gender and don't have to keep 4 different templates for one, which is actually one template, just different on the gender side. I can mark some of these as fields. So for example, the account names can be fields. So I can say, okay, use the same voice.
You want the transaction history for your primary account or your secondary account?
And primary account and secondary account came from the CRM of the organization, and they know that this customer called his account or her account primary and secondary, and some of them can call it by the name of the kids or whatever, and they all be stitched flawlessly within the same tone. And then we can even do it with voices that we grab from the internet, and we use 5 minutes of recordings from the internet.
Do you want the transaction history for your checking account or your savings account?
This is supposed to be Hillary, so. The next tool, which is part of our SDK, is a tool that we're also showing here on the floor. And this is a tool that allows people to test and experiment voices in domains, including templates and playing with variables. But also some organization, they use our system eventually to record because the system knows only how to get a WAV file, and they don't really have a TTS embedded in the system at all. And the reason for them to use a system like ours is just to generate more recordings of the voice that doesn't exist anymore, or the talent that is not available anymore. And we allow this to do as well, so people can actually go and download, create whatever they want to create and download. But it's a pretty powerful tool. To whoever asked about the question about SSML, every command here is actually part of our APIs, and all the commands that you see on the main working area are translated into SSML commands or SML extended commands, because SML doesn't support necessarily everything. So we can change domain, and in domains we can change different styles. So if I have this voice that we heard before reading this,
The north wind boasted of great strength. The sun argued that there was great power and gentleness.
and this is, let's say, the neutral style. In a less formal, more book reading style, it may sound differently.
The north wind boasted of great strength. The sun argued that there was great power and gentleness. We shall have a contest, said the north wind boasted
Oh.
of great strength. The sun argued that there was great power and gentleness. We shall have the north wind
Come on.
boasted of great strength. The sun argued that there
Listen now, let it finish, because it might be a long one. So we can change the styles and the tones, and again, users don't change anything other than saying this is a different style. Our prediction for the prosody would predict different prosody, and therefore will tell the synthesizer, synthesize this differently. This is the only thing.
But the harder the wind blew down the road, the tighter the ship
Let's listen to it for shortly.
came out from behind the cloud. Sun warmed the air and the frosty ground. The man on the road unbuttoned his coat. The sun grew slowly brighter and brighter. Soon the man felt
In a few moments, it's close to the end. Now, more than that, we can change the voice, and hopefully it's done now. So we can say the same thing, and all these voices that I'm going to show now are created from 5 to 10 minutes of recordings. This is it. Not all of them, not necessarily even from a studio recording. Some of them just phone recording or home studio recordings, and
The north wind boasted of great strength. The sun argued that there was great power and gentleness.
The sun argued that there was great power and gentleness.
or
The north wind boasted of great strength. The sun argued that there was
And you can see that all are saying saying it the same way because it's predicted by the system that under the style is the same way. These are just different voices. And I can, again, even take a voice from the internet and
The north wind boasted of great strength. The sun argued that there was great power and gentleness.
have it in a pretty reasonable quality. Again, you can hear some echoes because it was recorded with echoes, and this is what we do. And you can control also what we call modify the voice. This is more SSML commands. So of course you can do. People ask about reading slowly to adults and to old people, and reading slowly, but maybe with a bit of a different tone. So I can read the same thing.
The north wind boasted of great strength. The sun argued that there was great power and gentleness.
Or I can, again, small prints.
The north wind boasted of great strength. The sun argued that there was great power and gentleness.
And we keep the voice roughly the same, and the intelligibility is pretty good. We don't really damage this too much.
Let me think about it.
You are funny.
We can add gestures to make it funnier to the tones, and not all gestures are available for every style and every tone, so we try to arrange domains on that. We can change tones during the sentence.
Some competitors are so strong they can pull a fire truck across the finish line in 5.8 seconds. Some competitors are so strong they can pull a fire truck across the finish line in 5.8 seconds. Some competitors are so strong they can pull a fire truck across the finish line in 5.8 seconds.
And we can even have people that never spoke English, make them speak English if they have enough coverage in their original language. So this lady is speaking Croatian.
Znate da ljudi koji imaju najčvršće kosti jedu najmanje mliječnih proizvoda.
She's speaking Croatian.
Hello, Mrs. Stevens. If you would, please close the door behind you.
Now, of course, accent is kept, but this is a different language. So if you want even to play with that, of course, for languages we have the models for. It's very, very important. So we need the model to make the process of annotation, editing the data, faster. Without that, it will be just very, very long process. But even with languages that we don't have the model, I mean, it might be twice the time, but it won't be 5 years or whatever to build the process and make someone who never spoke a language speaking that language. With foreign language abilities. And to summarize, our voices, Brenda voices, are all expressive and relatively quickly and simply built. As we said, this is about between 1 week to 1 month process, and we recommend today 30 minutes of recordings. In the near future, like in 6 months, I think our next release should, once we have more data, should be reduced to about 15 to 20 minutes, and sometime mid next year we expect even less than 10 minutes for the same or better quality. I'm not talking about bad quality. Bad quality we can do today with 1-2 minutes. All our voices are situational and intelligible and intelligence, and we do have some NLG pieces that we support. Today with integration with some bots that we are making already, we see that we can actually save them some time when they have to prepare those templates and such. We can actually help them and create it in advance with the customer and sometimes with them, and they can actually give us much raw information, and we can actually build the sentence correctly while we just get raw information from them. Sometimes just values for fields, and they don't have to take care of how to say this name or how to phonetically say the say as command if you are familiar with SSML. We will do this automatically in our system. If it doesn't fit the template because you change a name of a street that was very, very short in a recording to something very, very long and vice versa, we'll take care of all that. I mean, this is part of what we do. We can easily get into a situation where an organization has a bunch of IVR systems that are being used already with existing recordings, and we can gradually help them or smoothly help them transition from that to more modern systems like chatbots and other systems using the same voices. So maybe not in the same sentence. I wouldn't use recording at all. I mean, I would just try to move everything to be synthesized and use everything to the synthesizer. But if still you have to use some people say, you know what, I still have some sentences that are totally different style. I don't want to build this style just for the opening for kids. This one just opening for other people. So keep those, and we'll try to keep the synthesis voice by the same voice, so people will not notice that they actually changed from recordings in the first 5 sentences to more formal and formatted speech later on. So we can do this with our voices, and actually we are being tested now to do this with a major bank, and I think a few notes, last but definitely not least, this is all complementary by tools that we have that we can help developers and organizations to actually build the system and not just build a demo, build a actually production system, whether it's APIs or tools. And it's because it's production, it can be delivered on all common known environments. I mean, so we have in the cloud solution, on-premise solution, hybrid between the two. Sometimes people want to have for example, let's say they don't have GPUs on-premise, but they still want to have the solution be on-premise. They can be, okay, let's do the GPUs from the cloud, but let's say have the rest of the solution on-premise. Of course, the business model is a bit different, because one can be per seat, the other one, or per session, the other one may be per transaction or something related to that. But either way, we have packaged solutions, embedded solutions, and we can, because it's neural network, we can shrink the model to very, very small model that fits even car applications and mobile application easily, because we tested the voices. Frankly, if you take a pretty good quality voice from 20 minutes, I mean, all our models originally are about the same size. The model is about 80 to 100 megabyte model, but if you reduce that 64 bits representation and some of the layers to less layers and shorter representation, you can go up to less than 10 meg if you're interested in that kind of voice. And the voice will still be intelligible and will still use the same models. It will just won't have enough acoustic data in it, but so it won't sound pretty good, but it will be pretty intelligible. That's it.